Hey everyone, I wanted to go over some new and exciting news that we got for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak's pending release onto the Nintendo Switch and on PC. And it comes to us directly from the official Capcom Tokyo Game Show presentation website. Remember that Tokyo Game Show will be a very big spotlight for Capcom, showcasing more information when it comes to not just Monster Hunter Rise, but also Monster Hunter Stories 2, and of course the recently revealed Monster Hunter Rise's Sunbreak expansion for summer of 2022. They're set to be hosting their very own presentation on September 30th, which is just a couple of days from now, at 9 a.m. Eastern Time or 6 a.m. Pacific Time. So I've talked about this in the past. You guys should definitely make sure to tune in so you can see all the brand new reveals. With that said, Capcom went ahead and actually made an official Tokyo Game Show page showcasing pretty much what they're gonna show up and pretty much linking you back to their official YouTube page where you can actually go ahead and watch the presentation directly onto YouTube. I'm gonna leave a link in the description below so you guys can actually check out the page for yourselves. So with all that said, the official page actually has a different couple of languages, be it Italian, French, Japanese, Korean, English, Spanish, whatever, you name it, it's there. And interestingly enough, when you check out the game's description in the bottom, in English, you pretty much have a pretty de facto default translation according to the information that they went ahead and provided us with. If you set out to look at the website just in English for the English translation version of it, all it actually says for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, it says, here are some details for the development team about the newly announced Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak and its world. And that's it. That's pretty much all it says. But interestingly enough, when you start messing around with the languages, you actually start to see different descriptions for each one of the subsequent areas around the world. And interestingly enough, the Italian description is a whole heck of a lot more different than the one in English and even the one in Japanese. And it actually reads, the first details for the brand new Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak will be presented by the development team. The features of the game and the settings, and of course, the return of historical monsters of the series. So we're actually getting more information than any of the other translations in the Italian one, where specifically they're mentioning the return of historical monsters to the series. Now that actually made me wonder, what do they actually mean by that? Because historical monster would, to me, presumably, wouldn't necessarily mean popular. Like Lagiacrus is popular, but that doesn't necessarily mean historical. To me, historical means obviously something from the early games, Monster Hunter 1 and Monster Hunter 2, maybe even, Frontiers and stuff like that. But for me personally, what this actually screams out is Laoshan and Yama. These are pretty much the two monsters that just stick out in my head whenever I hear historical and old school. Pretty much anything that's historical when it comes to Monster Hunter, to me, stands out. Laoshan and Yama to me, because obviously it just hasn't been available anywhere else. It's one of those monsters that was just pretty much there and nowhere else. Lao has been in other games, but not necessarily to a huge extent. Popular, for sure. Historical, of course. Then there's also Fatalis. This is one of those monsters that's obviously been rumored a whole heck of a lot when it comes to Monster Hunter Stories 2, being added in as one of the most recent upcoming DLCs for that game has been heavily rumored. I think almost guaranteed at this point. But again, that's just speculation. No confirmations here. We shouldn't be making any sort of confirmations, but it's heavily rumored. Let's just leave it at that. So Fatalis coming into Sunbreak wouldn't necessarily be too much of a surprise to me. Also, another one that you would think of that also makes the list, I think, is Lunastra. But that's one of those monsters that was also available in Monster Hunter World, and Iceborne specifically. So it should be one of those that they could easily just bring over. Not necessarily a big deal, but it's there. Again, for me personally, when they say historic, I think Laoshan and Yama. I would love to hear your guys' takes on this, actually, because this is now giving us a little bit more description into what to actually expect. And I'll read it again. The first details on the brand new Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak presented by the development team. The features of the game and the setting and the return of historical monsters to the series. So it's just one of those things where the wording is a little bit very specific to me when they're saying historical, because it just means it's arcing back to a time before the game was pretty much popular in the West, obviously. And to me, that basically means Monster Hunter 1 and 2. Even before even the PSP games, to me, is just pretty much historical in that regard. But that might be my take on it, not necessarily yours. So I definitely want to hear what you guys take on this specifically wording, which again is only available in the Italian version of the page interestingly enough, nowhere else. So it could be one of those things, you know, we could probably be making a big deal out of something that is not necessarily a big deal, because ultimately someone wrote this up in Italian and just put it up on their website. Obviously they work for the company, so it could be one of those things that they could have been spicing up their very own language to see if anyone picked up on it, but it doesn't necessarily mean like this came from the developers officially. So it could be just one of those things, someone decided to spice up the text and just made it up that way. So we don't necessarily know, but obviously right now, until we see the presentation, this is all we can hope for. Remember, this is going to be part of the Tokyo Game Show presentation that they will be having. They will be talking about Monster Hunter Rise, Stories 2, and of course Sunbreak as well, which I'm sure everyone is heavily anticipating to see much more information about this game. I know I am, and I can't wait to see what they actually show up, and I can't wait to report on that as well. But that's going to be it for this video. I wanted to keep it as short as possible and just report on the information that we're getting, because that's kind of what I like to do. If you are brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.